It is that time again, ladies and gentlemen, where we talk about one of Path of Exile's most beginner-friendly skills, and that is, of course, Arc Lightning. A skill that is League starter friendly and doesn't require much investment to deal multiple millions of damage. Its historical drawback is that builds that use it are squishy, and that's something that we intend to fix with this video. By stacking mana and combining it with Mind over Matter Keystone, we take 40% of all damage from our mana before our life. We also get 10% from our Ascendancy. We also have the Agnostic Keystone, which actively drains 20% of our maximum mana to recover that much life. Combined together, you won't die as long as you have any amount of mana remaining. Also, assuming that your mana is at least twice the size of your life, you can run something like Righteous Fire for that extra 40% more spell damage multiplier all the time. Now, the Hierophant Ascendancy is your best bet for builds like this one. First, we take Conviction of Power. This node is arguably one of Path of Exile's best Ascendancy nodes, as it increases our maximum power and endurance charge count by 1, and gives us 4 minimum to each all the time. We get elemental resistances and phys mitigation from endurance charges, and global critical strike chance with power charges. Having access to them while leveling is huge. Next we have Arcane Blessing. This node gives us free Arcane Surge buff with 50% increased effect on hit. Arcane Surge alone is 10% more spell damage. With this node, it becomes a permanent 15% more damage boost. From here we take Illuminated Devotion. This node grants us life leech from spell damage and reduces the effects of non-damaging elements on us while we have Arcane Surge. This combined with our Pantheons, we become immune to Chill, Shock and Freeze. Last but not least we have Divine Guidance. This node increases our maximum mana and grants us that 10% damage taken from mana before life that I told you about. It also grants us Transfiguration of the Mind, which makes it so that modifiers to maximum mana applies to damage at a third of their values. We have a lot of mana in this build, so you get the idea. And yeah, that was it for our Ascendancy. Now let's take a quick look at our passive tree. Our tree focuses on lightning damage, elemental damage, spell crit chance and crit multi, life, every single power charge node available for us to take, and most importantly, mana. Remember that mana is a more effective life pool for us in a build like this one. Next we got two large cluster jewel setups going. Each adds some powerful spell/lightning notables like Practiced Caster, Sap Psych, and Scintillating Idea. For mastery choices, just make sure to take the lightning skills chains one additional time, as that mastery is a lot of damage for Arc specifically. Also, since we are a mana build, take increases and reductions to maximum mana applies to shock effect at a third of their value. And that was it for our passive tree. If you are looking for what order to construct your passive tree in while leveling, then make sure to check the description, as there you will be finding a separate POB link with step-by-step leveling progress for your tree. Alright, now let's talk about what items you should be aiming to get once you start transitioning from League start to mid-league. You might have noticed that we haven't allocated Mind over Matter on the tree. Well, that's because we are using Cloak of Defiance, a rather cheap unique that grants us that keystone for free. That's in addition to 1% mana regen, which is detrimental for a build like this one. Now, since our Ascendancy grants us +1 to maximum power charges, it only makes sense to use Void Battery as our main weapon of choice. This one reduces our spell damage but greatly increases it back once we build up enough power charges. The wand also grants us +1 to maximum power charges, increased cast speed, flat mana, and spell crit chance, and all of these things are amazing for a build like this one. Now for our helm, you want the Crown of the Inward Eye, preferably with +1 to maximum power charge corruption. This helm is a very common boss drop, allowing people to easily corruption hunt for it. Once you get yours, try to enchant it with Arc Chains one additional time, as you can enchant corrupted items with Tainted Blessing. Anyway, our next item is Adziri's Foible. Since we use mana to protect ourselves, it only makes sense to use this amulet, as it greatly increases all of our mana parameters. Just make sure to anoint Disciple of the Unyielding on your amulet for that additional endurance charge and 40% increased damage. Next, for our gloves, we got rare gloves with life, mana, and whatever resistances you can get. Make sure that your gloves are not influenced, so that you can use Eldritch currency on it to get both lightning exposure on hit and chance to unnerve enemies on hit, which increases the spell damage they take by 10%. Our next item is a rare belt with life, mana, and increased mana recovery rate, which is an important mod to have. That alongside resistances if you can have them. Make sure to enchant your belt with 50% increased critical strike chance against unnerved enemies, since we do have that as an implicit on our gloves. Now for our rings, First, get any ring you can find with +1 to maximum power charge mod. This can be found on both rare and unique rings. Ideally you want it to be a rare ring with life and mana on it like this one. Our second ring is self-crafted synthesized base with 6% increased spell damage per power charge. On it we use Essences of Scorn until we hit both crit multi and increased mana regen. After that, we lock the suffixes and reforge caster to add cast speed. After that we keep exalting the prefixes until we get life and mana. It shouldn't be hard as both life and mana are the most common mods in the entire game. Finally, for our boots, we are looking for movement speed, life, mana, resistances, and most importantly, the lab enchant which increases our mana regeneration by 35% if we have cast a spell recently. You can farm that yourself, it's very common actually. But with that we are done with our items. Now let's talk about gems that goes inside of them. For our main 6 link we have level 21 Val Arc, Awakened Lightning Penetration, Increased Critical Strike Support, Power Charge on Crit, Awakened Spell Echo, and Awakened Added Lightning Damage. Feel free to use the non-awakened version of these gems if you are on a budget. Next we got our main damage support setup, starting with Wrath, Eternal Blessing Support, Divergent Righteous Fire, and Anomalous Conductivity. Eternal Blessing makes it so that we can run one and only one aura, but makes it so that that linked aura has no reservation. This is especially important in a build like ours, where we cannot afford to have our mana reserved as it protects us from damage. Next we got another damage support setup. This one contains Divergent Arcane Cloak, max level Divergent Arcane Surge, enhanced support, and increased duration. Finally, for our movement skill setup, we got Lightning Warp, faster casting, less duration, and swift affliction. If you don't Lightning Warp, then you can use Flame Dash if you want to. I just think that this build does have enough cast speed to make Lightning Warp viable. But with that being said, we are done with our main gems. Now let's talk about jewels. For our Watcher's Eye, we got 15% lightning penetration while affected by Wrath. And that's it. Aside from that, we got one Healthy Mind unique jewel. Place it in this specific socket to convert all nearby life nodes into mana. We also have one Militant Faith Timeless Jewel that must mention High Templar Dominus specifically. Place it in this socket to maximize its effect. This jewel will convert all nearby keystones into Inner Conviction. Inner Conviction grants us 3% more spell damage per power charge. Next we got one Sublime Vision Prismatic Jewel that makes it so that our lightning damage saps enemies while affected by Wrath. Sap is a nice defensive element, which makes enemies deals up to 20% less damage to everything. Finally, any remaining jewel socket you have left should be filled with a normal rare jewel like this one. We are looking for mana and as many damage modifiers as possible like crit multi and increased spell damage. Though feel free to get resistances if you still need them. Now for Bandit's quest, we are going to help Allura as usual. As for Pantheons, we got the Soul of the Bright King for its freeze immunity and the Soul of Garukan for its shock effect reduction. Anyway, that was it for our final iteration of the strongest Arc Lightning build in Path of Exile. If you guys have enjoyed this video, then feel free to leave a like and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future build guides like this one. My name is Phoenix and I will see you all in the next video.